We just sat through, over the course of a couple of days, we didn't do it all at once.
That's true.
All 4 Indiana Jones films.
All 4.
And when we're done with this, I'm going to sit her down and we're going to watch all 3 seasons of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, right?
Ooh, really?
Yeah, she called my bluff.
All right, well, this week with Team Deth, it's catching up with the Joneses.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. Before we get into it's not a review, a reflection, I suppose, or a revisitation.
There you go.
What is your experience with Indiana Jones?
So I love Indiana Jones. I'm a true child of the 80s. My pre-bike years were in the 80s. So you were kind of stuck at home sometimes with a babysitter, and I had a babysitter who loved to play the Indiana Jones VHSs. So, like, we watched them a lot, and then we're a big Disney family, so of course the year that the ride opened, we had to go, and on one occasion I've actually ridden that ride 13 times in a row trying to get all 3 colors. So I like them a little bit.
Okay, all right. So for me, I did not see Raiders of the Lost Ark when it first came out.
Okay.
I did not see Temple of Doom when it first came out. So with Raiders, it just wasn't on my radar because I was a Star Wars kid through and through. If it wasn't sci-fi, I wasn't interested. When Temple of Doom came out, I remember specifically my father wanting to take us to see it. I was like, I didn't see the first one. I don't want to bother. I was a dumb kid. I did see Last Crusade theatrically in Crystal Skull. And since then, I've seen Raiders and Temple of Doom theatrically. In fact, when I worked in the Procrastinator Theater, which was the student-run movie theater at Montana State University.
That's a great name, by the way.
Yeah. I suggested that we get up until that point, just the trilogy of Indiana Jones films. We could play 2 different movies. We have a 3-platter system, meaning that you had 1 platter where the entire film was built out on, a platter to take up the film, and then the 3rd platter for the second film you're going to show that night. So what we did is we showed Raiders. It came off of 1 platter through the projector into the empty platter for take-up. We would then show Temple of Doom, and while Temple of Doom was coming off of that platter into the now empty one below, we broke down Raiders and built up Last Crusade, and then did Last Crusade after that. We did that every night for the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Wow.
It was fun. It meant that I missed Temple of Doom a lot, but, I've seen these movies so many times since then. I've gone back and I've seen them theatrically. One of my best friends in high school, Jared, don't know if he's watching, but if you are, shout out to you, buddy, I miss you. When he got his Laserdisc player, the very first movie we watched on his Laserdisc player was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh.
And then we did The Wall, the U2 thing, but it was Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I'm a huge fan of Raiders. I've read all the novels. I've read a number of the comic books. I've done the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. I've watched fan films. I've listened to audio dramas. I'm a huge fan of all things Indy, even Crystal Skull, and especially Temple of Doom, which we'll talk.
I actually have a newfound appreciation for Temple of Doom after this watch through.
When we watched all 4 movies, and we'll talk about them specifically as well, but as we were watching them, did the order of your appreciation of the films change? Meaning, there's 4 movies. For me, the first one's the best, and they go down from there. Did it change for you?
It did. I came in and came out. Still, my favorite is Last Crusade. It was the first one that I saw in a theater, versus just on tape at home. For me, though, the culmination of all the characters from the first 2 and new characters, plus we get the actual Nazis and we get Sean Connery, of course. So that was a big thing for me. I used to be a Sean Connery fan. So that's my number 1. But I think the rest of the order did change a bit. I think Temple of Doom definitely picked up a spot. It used to be my least favorite. I actually liked Crystal Skull better, and those 2 have now reversed. And then Raiders is second for me because it's so close on Raiders and Last Crusade for me on 1 and 2. But yeah, no, Temple of Doom, I have a new appreciation for it. And I suspect if I take the same attitude, and I'll talk about what that is in a little bit, to Crystal Skull, I might appreciate it a little better. So I'm still processing that one.
I just read an article online where somebody was ranking the top 20 John Williams scores. And Raiders, of the 4 Indiana Jones films, is the only one that makes the list of the top 20. Of course, Star Wars is on there, and the Poseidon Adventure for some reason or other. No Dracula, though. His Dracula score is fantastic. But anyway, Raiders is on there, and that music is iconic. And I had that soundtrack album, an actual LP, and I played it over and over and over again. And I loved it because the liner notes in it talked about how Indiana Jones only knew when to duck, when to weave, when to move away from a punch, because the music told him to. And I think that kind of opened my ears and my eyes a little bit to the importance and the power of film scores, and John Williams in particular. So again, going back to my fandom of Raiders, that was a huge part of my development as a film fan, and Raiders for me is my favorite film of the 4. We'll see how it turns out after we see the 5th, but I have a feeling Raiders is going to be right there at the top for me.
Now, you said Raiders is your favorite film of the 4. Do you have a different favorite score of the 4?
Yes, I do. I love Temple of Doom's score more. I think Temple of Doom's score is more worldly. There's more stuff going on and a lot more complex. I knew a guy in film school, Travis Halfman, if you're watching, shout out, miss you, buddy, who loved Last Crusade because there's a very classical music sensibility to a lot of the music in that. And yeah, film scores are all related to classical music, sure. But for me, Temple of Doom is the superior score. There's more chances being taken, and Short Round's theme is just fantastic.
As I said, that was something you had pointed out was his theme, and then that got me paying attention. And, you know, he isn't the only one in that movie. If you look, certain bad guys have a theme. They clearly have a melody that goes with them. Everybody's favorite actress has her own little ditty that plays in the background a lot when she's finally, but only when she's taking command. Only when she finally is like not a victim anymore. She's gonna join in. She's gonna pick up a stick and whack the bad dude. You know, whatever way she's joining in, does she earn her own theme? So I think that's something that I would love to go back now and watch them again, although maybe not all in a row. And look and see if that's something that he carries throughout the series, because I did notice the music in 4 does that a little bit. And there's even a character who just has a variation on Indy's own theme, so found that very interesting to now that I'm listening for it and watching for it.
And I've got my wife talking about film scores. I win. That's awesome. So with Raiders, like I said, it's my favorite of the 4. I think the reason I love it so much is it feels the most dangerous of the 4 in that anything could possibly happen. Once you get to Temple of Doom, and especially Last Crusade, Indy is full-out superhero.
Yeah.
There are things that happen to that man that would drop, well, me just thinking hard about it.
Good Lord, the refrigerator.
Or, you know, the stuff he goes through, the trauma he goes through in Temple of Doom, or Last Crusade with the tank, that whole situation. There's a lot of superhero stuff that's happening, but with Raiders, yeah, he's still kind of heroic, but he doesn't have the obvious plot armor.
Yeah.
He takes more damage, and to me, it makes the movie feel more real and grounded. Yes, I know we're talking about the Lost Ark and people's faces melting and other crazy things happening, but it just feels the most dangerous and real to me, and that's why I love it so much.
I agree with what you're saying there about it. It feels more dangerous. It feels more fully Indy, authentically Indy. I think it's the one that I would say is most told from Indiana's point of view.
And that's something we're going to keep coming back to, because she brought up something with Temple of Doom, and I don't know if you want to get into it now, that didn't change my appreciation for the film, because it is my second favorite of the whole series. It did change how I think about it, and I think if the people who, let's be fair or honest, a lot of people hate on Temple of Doom. I think the people who hate on Temple of Doom, if they saw it the way that you pitched it to me, might change their thoughts on it.
I've been thinking about this for a while now, and it's something that I had kind of thought of a little before and only fully realized recently. on reviewing, I think Temple of Doom is Indy's story told from Short Round's point of view. So what I'm saying is that when you see Short Round on screen, you see a pretty accurate depiction most of the times of what really happened on their adventure. Now, sometimes Short Round's antics are a little super heroic themselves, if you know what I mean, where, you know, he takes out 6 or 7 bad guys in a row without any weapon in his hand, and you're like, okay, there's a little kid, let's be honest here. But when you see things from Indy's point of view, it's as if someone heard the story secondhand and then tried to jazz it up for an audience. So I almost feel like Temple of Doom is us listening to Short Round when he's older, which luckily we can all picture exactly what he'd look like when he was older. Recent award winner there. Telling his kids the story of how Indy rescued him from out of poverty as a child in Shanghai and their adventure that they went on, you know, on his quest for freedom and everything. And I think if you look at it that way, then a lot of the goofy things become less goofy.
One thing that, not necessarily my own mother, but Jared's mother, again, a shout out to Jared, would say to Jared and I.
And Jared's mom.
Is that we ruined movies for her. Because as kids, we would talk about these movies in such grand brush strokes and maybe play them up bigger than they really were, because that's how we interpreted them and filtered them through a young boy's eyes, right? I know that I did it with Gremlins when I was telling my friend Bobby across the street all about Gremlins, because his parents wouldn't let him go see it, so I felt I had to tell him about Gremlins. And I know that I kind of overplayed some of the more graphic stuff because, oh, it's cool, you know. Gremlin in a blender and a microwave. I'm sure I overplayed that stuff. So when you think about some of the kind of gross out moments in Temple of Doom, you got a little boy talking about it. Of course he's going to overplay, like the gross out chilled monkey brains, and they cut open a snake and more snakes came out.
Of course, yeah.
So whether that's how it really went down, or Short Round bragging it up to his friends or whatever. Indy tells Short Round one night about the jazz club or music club sequence at the beginning of the film. Short Round's going to imagine this complex title sequence that the characters in the movie never saw. That whole Busby Berkeley dance number, the characters in the film didn't see that happen.
Yeah, not everyone else saw that. So
nobody saw it. It was strictly for the titles, because Willie goes into the dragon mouth.
That's true.
And then it all happens behind there, and then she comes back out again. Nobody saw any of that stuff. So, of course, Short Round's probably making this stuff up.
If you're thinking he's a kid that's seen 20s and 30s movies that he's had to like sneak into the back of some theater there in Shanghai being very Western at that time. I was lucky enough a few years ago to get to visit Shanghai, and I had not realized the rich history in contact with the Western world that Shanghai has had, much more so than many other Chinese or other Asian cities on that side of the world. So they would have had movie houses, absolutely. They would have been hungry for anything Western culture-wise. So it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that there'd be a nightclub with this great over-the-top number and 40 tap dancing girls. But it's still pretty unlikely, and they probably didn't look really as American as Short Round's imagination made them look, you know.
Right.
And I'm sure they weren't all perfectly in lockstep through the anything goes tap routine. But yes, it's him telling a story. So when things happen in it, like you pointed out, there's no way you could jump out of an airplane in a raft and hit the ground and live. And I told you that when I was in school, one of my teachers set our class an assignment. We had to figure the math out for that, and like how high could it be and how much snow would there have to be. And it was ridiculous. There's no way they could have survived. But if it's Short Round telling it, then maybe the plane just crashed and they kind of fell out on the raft or something and then used the raft to slide down. They could have slid down the mountain on a raft. That's totally plausible. The other part is probably a little bit more storyteller's license, if you will. And so then it becomes this fun romp of like seeing it through a child's eyes.